Good morning, everybody. Welcome to developing interactive applications using Windows Live Robots, or bots, as affectionately known, activities and alerts. My name is Campbell Gunn. I'm a program manager in the Windows Live Messenger team. I have two gentlemen behind me here who are from Conversagent. I have Pierre Birkenhoff and I have John Kim. And they're going to talk how they've made a business using our platform and developing a platform for Windows Live Robots, or bots. So what we want to talk about here is really an introduction. What is the Windows Live Robots, firstly, activity applications and alerts. So we're going to talk about the Windows Live Messenger platform. We're going to talk about activity applications, so designing an interactive application, web-based application inside the Messenger environment to project information from maybe the internet or from an intranet environment. We're then going to talk about the alerts and having notifications appear on your desktop based on content that you subscribe to, so the powers in the individual user to subscribe to certain content that they want to get access to and have notifications bringing through. We're then going to talk about, and in fact, Pierre and John are going to talk about building and deploying bots and how Conversagent has built a platform that you guys can leverage and build your own interactive agents. So let's talk about the Windows Live Messenger platform. It's really allowing you, through a social networking paradigm, to build multi-user interactive applications. And our target audience, or the potential target audience that you have, is around 200+ million users. So we have a very extensive user base here. And there are opportunities for businesses, for hobbyists, for end developers to go off and create applications on this platform. To get access to the API or various parts of the API, you sign a terms of use. After accepting the terms of use, you can go off and create your applications on the Live Messenger, Windows Live Messenger platform. There are capabilities there to serve advertising, serve ads, and share the revenue. So if you sort of work with, say, Amazon.com, and you created an activity application or bot around selling books, then there's obviously, if you're referring people through the Messenger application infrastructure to Amazon.com, you're going to get some revenue sharing capabilities there. Also, you may want to advertise to your partners, to your customers, have the opportunity to purchase advertising, to purchase placements on the Messenger environment in the activity application or in the bot. And then your customers, partners can then pay for that placement. I think what's interesting is the platform is evolving, and we're taking on new technologies and allowing a new twist on mashups, for example, dynamic HTML and AJAX style development as well. So a lot of this interaction can happen client side. You don't have to go to the server side and then wait for that round trip. And I'll explain some of the reasons why that. So what we try to do with the Windows Live Messenger platform is provide you all the plumbing so that you can concentrate on the content, your business domain, what information you want to deliver to your customers, to your partners, and provide that capability. So let's talk about what are activities, bots, and alerts. This may be entirely new to some of you. Often when I go and speak to people about this capabilities, they sort of think, well, what is all this stuff? And then they're very surprised. And really, a picture paints 1,000 words. When I talk about it over the phone to somebody, they're like, I don't get this. And then when I tell them to add a contact and have a look at a bot, they go, wow, I get this now, I understand this. So it's all about driving user interaction and engagement. It's different to a website. I think of a bot, an activity application, or alerts as a conduit to information. It could be a conduit to Windows Live services, for example, Spaces, Hotmail, Windows Live Mail, various Windows Live assets like that. It could be your own assets. So you could have your own website that has content that you want to deliver in a social, interactive way. I had some customers now looking at how they put PowerPoint and use an ActiveX control and place that in the activity part so that remote people can look in and they can talk about a particular presentation deck or a business deck and things like that. So let's break down what's in that actual conversation window that we see here. So we're looking at the right and we're looking at the activity window space, the activity application window space. This allows us client-to-client data transfer. The interaction is going through the Windows Messenger client through to another Windows Messenger client. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other interactions that happen behind the scenes there. It's conversation interaction. That is, as you're talking or communicating with another end user or with a bot, the activity application can then respond to those particular events that's happening in the conversation thread and show you different content. Also, what's important is that the conversation part, which I'll show you very shortly, is in fact sent in just as text. So it can be snooped. So how do you provide a secure mechanism here? So a secure mechanism for us is that you can provide HTTPS, so using a secure sockets layer here for data exchange. For example, if you're creating an application where you want to get some personal identifiable data that's related to your business, such as an account number or something like that. They could enter that in the activity window through HTTPS and then have the capabilities to carry on. Also, too, is that we have mashup style applications where you can use dynamic HTML or AJAX, so you're using client-side capabilities now instead of having to go out to the server and round trip back to the server. On the left-hand side, we have the bots or the conversational window. Bots being that there's a computer at the other end that's interacting with you, or you could have another user as well as a bot, so you can actually get into the social networking. And think about that when you're designing your on the Windows Live Messenger application platform, that it is in a social networking paradigm, that you have contacts, other users have contacts, okay, and the bot can actually respond to those different contacts and have a conversation. You interact via the conversation window. We can customize various components here, such as the user tile that you're seeing here. Also, too, is that we can put personal status messages which appear under the contact name. For example, try me, or you may have a free offer, something that's enticing the particular person to go to that particular contact and engage with them. Also, the content can be very broad. That is, you may want to have a corporate FAQ bot, and you want to interact and find out, I may be coming to this company because I want to deal with it on a business relationship, and I may want to find out about who the CEO is, who the CTO is, what are their partners. And you can provide that information, typically what you would have on your public website. Or you could actually get very domain specific, that you may have a help bot, and all it does is help on a particular product, and that's all it does. So you can be very broad or very specific on a particular domain. And one thing that's really unique about this is we combine the bots or the conversation component with the activity window, so they're constantly interacting with each other. And one thing that you'll see is that we utilize third party here to build a platform around this that connects into the Windows Live Messenger platform, and that you can download Conversations SDK and start creating the bots and combine activity windows and combine the conversation together. And Pierre and John will show you shortly. So let's talk about alerts. Alerts are notifications, so they appear at the corner of your computer. They could be, in fact, an SMS text message. It could be an email message. So there are different mediums that you can receive alerts on. Don't narrow yourself to appearing the toast that appears down your desktop. There are other mediums that you can send alerts to. They are published via RSS feeds. So if your website or your particular business supports RSS feeds, then you can interact with alerts. And we use alerts in particular in the Windows Live Messenger applications to draw users back into Messenger. So if there's information that you want to provide, such as a new product, and you want that person then to click on that and go into the Messenger conversation window and start asking about the product, it's a way of drawing into that particular medium. Also, too, is from that, then you can launch activities or bots from the toast as well. And I'll talk more about alerts shortly. So what are MSN alerts? So they're a great way to deliver information to consumers. They're up to 10 times more effective than simple email. All right, because the end user subscribes to the content. They're in control. They're saying, I want this information, I want it on this frequency or this occurrence, and I want it to be based, and I want it sent to either Messenger through the toast, the actual alert that appears. I want it sent as email. I want it sent as, through an SMS message to my mobile. You can select 1, 2, or all 3 mediums if you wish. And it's a great way to partner with MSN to drive traffic. The real primary role of this is that as this particular toast appears and it catches the user's attention, they click on that, which then takes them to your particular content, your business content, your website, your Messenger bot, all right? And so that allows you then to drive more traffic to your website. But also, too, is that just by having, as we can see here, the MSNBC logo or the NASDAQ logo, it reinforces the branding awareness of your organization. Brand is a very powerful asset that you have within your organization. And then from that, you can generate revenues because obviously you're attracting a user base, 200 plus million users, right, to your website potentially. So what I want to do now is show you a couple of demos. The first one is Windows Live Safety Scanner Activity Application. So once you get an idea of what an activity application looks like. And then I'm going to show you an entertainment bot, which we class as an entertainment bot called ESP Billy, which combines both bot, the conversational aspect, as well as the activity application. So I'll just make sure that this has my contacts. I'll just log in. I'm actually using the version 8 client. If you haven't seen this before, it's certainly, the UI is pretty cool. So I'm just logging in. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to switch over to my other machine, which is computer 2. And first one I'm going to show you is, and I'll talk to, you've got to see how the two users interact because it's an interactive capability. So I'm just calling the user on the other machine over here. And from that, I'm going to select the activity list of activities. And what I'm going to, with these particular activities over on the right-hand side here, as you can see, these are actually provisioned by the Windows Live network. And I'll talk a little bit later on when I get into activity applications how this process works. You don't have to go to this step straight away. If you're just testing out your activity applications, you can in fact set it up so you can do local testing, and I'll also step through that process. So don't be too worried about this. But the first one I want to show you there is the Windows Live Safety Scanner, and I'll select that option. Notice that a request has come over here onto the machine. I'm going to accept that request. And I actually tried this last night. Given my accent, I'm Australian. I was actually helping my mother with her machine. She actually has an ISDN connection there in Australia. And she was worried about that she was going to have a virus. And so I actually did a safety scanner check. And you can see there are two options. I can do a complete scan, which will check for viruses, wasted disk space, any maintenance issues, making sure that the firewall settings are correct. And so what I'm doing is you notice on the other screen that I don't get that option. I'm actually doing it from a PC notebook environment across to a desktop PC. And now I just say next. And it's going to now start loading the scanning tools. Then shortly it'll actually go in and start virus checking. Might take a little bit of time, so I might. It's a little bit slow with everyone else dealing with the internet. So I might just let that go for a bit. So let me show you the ESP Billy. It's the main important part about this is the sound. So that's just showing you a business aspect of an activity application. So you could have a PowerPoint deck in here using the ActiveX controls within Office PowerPoint. You could have content, maybe blog information on your corporate blog or FlexWiki or something that you're using it. You want to have content to exchange in a social environment that is more than one user. All right, think about that when you're building these applications. So I'll go and show you ESP Billy here. So this is a bot in an activity application. Notice here that I've got a user tile that's reflecting that. It says, do you want to know my future? And this is interactive conversation with the bot. So I'll say, sure. Okay, and then I accept. So should get the sound here. So I've got a pilot episode. I have some episodes here. This is actually based on sort of like a mini lecture series.
The future made present for you to see. All will come true. Money back guarantee.
Why do I get more junk mail than I do real mail? ESP Billy. That's weird. Soothsaying sorcerer of destiny can tell the future. Guaranteed accurate or your money back. Connect to Billy online today for your free trial reading. Offer not valid in Utah. What the hell? I'll check anything out for free. Free. I like free. I got your postcard about your free reading.
Free reading.
Yeah, I got the postcard right here.
All right. You got it. One free reading.
What's going to happen to me in the future?
I always get the amateurs when I'm hungover. You need to be more specific. Give me something to work with.
Okay. What's going to happen to me in the next 2 minutes?
The future made present for you to see. All will come true. Money back guarantee.
Eating pie. Broken glass. Body under books. Mouse nibbling toast.
No way.
Get with Travis's mom. Gonna make sweet love to her all night long. Scooby up beat. Boo 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 bow green and down bow bow boo bow boo.
No mouse?
What just happened?
Huh.
A minute 58. 2 seconds to spare. Next one, $50.
Okay, so you can see there, it's an example of putting rich media content in the activity window. I also can say, and I'll start interacting with you on that. You can see on the other side too that the scan on Windows Live Safety Center is also finished, that the protection there was no viruses found on the machine, so you can see the two interactions from that. So I'll go back to the slide deck. At this point, it'll appear on both screens. And let's talk now a little bit more detail about activity applications. So activity applications, we're going to talk about how to create a messenger activity application. There are two types. You saw there that one was multi-user, where we saw the Windows Live Safety Center, and there was actually interaction between two users. The other one was a single user activity application, where the bot was providing activity application, you were just clicking on and viewing the content. So think about this a couple of different ways. We're also going to look at, because it's a HTML or HTML-based application, you can actually debug the application, and I'll show you how to do that. We'll also do a demo walkthrough, and I'll show you some code and just how to construct and build a activity application. So what are activity applications? One or two are user applications built on the Windows Live Messenger communication infrastructure. There are different modes that we can connect. We can do peer-to-peer, it's using our peer-to-peer transport, or you can actually go through, if you've got firewall issues or things like that, you can actually go up through our cloud and then back down again. It just allows you to pass through proxies or firewalls. What's interesting here is that activity application is running in the same process as Messenger, but what it's doing is loading the Internet Explorer control aspects. So it's utilizing Internet Explorer. And from that, you can then utilize all the features that are found within Internet Explorer, and we'll talk more about that. As I mentioned earlier, you can host it on your internet or intranet. You can interact, as we saw in the Messenger conversation stream. We can also find out Messenger information. That is, we could find the person's first name or last name, and so we can be more personalized in the activity application experience. From there too, is you can also, it's launchable from inside or outside of Messenger. So you could actually have a link, and I'll show you very shortly the URL link that you could actually click on that, which would launch the Messenger, an instance of the Messenger conversation window in the activity application, and away you go. Also too is that we have the capability to be provisioned in Windows Live, and you saw there when I dragged down the activity list, we saw the different activity applications. That's where we actually provision the application. And I'll talk more about provisioning. It's not where we actually host your content. We just give you a link to say, okay, here's a way for users to get to your content that you may be hosting on your internet site. So Messenger Activity Platform, apps can be built using Dynamic HTML, ActiveX. You have different development options. You can use ASP.NET, C, C++, C#, etc. there. We have great international support. Because Windows Live Messenger worldwide support, we have 25 plus languages. We have 45 plus markets that you could have applications that are market specific. You want to go after European market or a very localized market depending on your capabilities. We have requests coming from Mexico where they want to have applications, activity applications and bots specific to Spanish and only in that marketplace. Let's talk about some of the design considerations. IE 5.01 or greater is required. What's interesting there is you saw the size. You know, this is not a full-blown web page, website that you're seeing here. It's a portion, it's a conduit into your information. So you want to think about what information you want to project through your activity application. And there's a window size, and I'd say maximum window size is 500 by 500 pixels. That's the recommended, but it's not limited there. And if you go beyond that, what happens is you get horizontal and vertical scroll bars, and so you have to scroll around the content, so just think about that. I mean, there's nothing wrong about that. It depends if you want to then style particular content for that size. Connection types, there's showing you the indirect connection type through the Messenger cloud. You're only at 195K per minute. The direct is peer-to-peer, and really it's limited by the bandwidth between the two clients, right, because it's using a peer-to-peer. You need to think about security considerations here, that ActiveX applications need to be certified, that is provisioned in the Windows Live platform. So in order to get ActiveX capability out to other users, you can test ActiveX locally between two machines if you want to. We don't put any limitations there. It's just when you want to provision it and make it available to other people, it needs to be certified. Think about your content for obvious reasons. You're exposing it to 200+ million users. So no adult gaming or hateful content, right? Think about the content you're trying to project. And also, too, is that you saw with the activity application, it's important to provide some level of help. All right, so we find that some people that build activity applications, you get there, you look at it and you go, well, what do I do next? So here are the messenger activity objects. The main ones to think about here is the channel object. That channel object is actually how the client-to-client communication. So we have channel.data, and I'll talk more about this, how data is passed between two clients, when the application is started, when the application is closed, if there's error, the type of connection, whether it's direct or indirect, and you're looking through these different things. You notice here that in the messenger and user collections that those access is restricted there. It's restricted in the sense that obviously the dialer and option dialogues, we don't want to be able to start changing people's settings, so we restrict that for a reason. So here's a sort of high-level architecture view of how activity applications interact. So you have two users on either side. They have a copy of the activity application. That is, it's being passed to a website, maybe an internal or external website. From there, they can establish a direct connection if there's no firewall or proxy limitations. If there are, then it'll actually go up through the Windows Live. So when you're looking at the content, think about what you're trying to deliver there. Don't have so much content you're trying to push down to the client, because obviously the client has to render that. They're dictated by speed. Normal paradigm for developing web applications apply here. So here are the required definitions, and it's done in JavaScript. So you can see there are a number of functions. There's on remote app loaded. So here's when the application is instantiated. You can then say, okay, what am I going to do when it's actually created? On remote app close. So this is what's happening on the remote end. So if I'm sitting here and somebody's firing up that application, do I need to send an event to me to say, okay, something's happening here, the application's starting? On data received, how do I process the data? I receive some data. So what's important, the channel that's happening, it's not actual web content that's being passed, it's actually events to say I've clicked on this certain event, I've done this activity or this action within the activity application. So we're sending data there. What happens if the message doesn't get through? So on data error, you've got some error handling here to say, I want to retransmit it 3 times, 4 times, or maybe I send a notification that something's wrong here. You need to think about what happens if it errors. Here's the on type changed. So if the user is sitting outside in the internet, using a public access network, and it's quite easy to get to the activity application and then goes inside their firewall into the corporate environment, what happens there? The data connection's now changed. It's gone from direct to indirect mode. And how do you cater for that? So you can actually trigger on that. And then also what happens, it's a very polite system, if you like. So on app close. So either of us, when we saw that at Windows Live Safety Center application, if either one of us closes, a message comes up to say that each one of the ends has actually closed the application down. Because it's pointless continuing on if the other person's not receiving anything and has closed down the application. So let's talk about the provisioning restricted functionality. And this is when you go to actually provision your application, you'll get access to all of these points here. But if you're just testing and you don't want to go through the provisioning process, you'll only get access to a certain first 2 particular functionalities. And you've got send IM and receive IM. That's receiving the messages and exposing the enter IM and send IM methods of the channel object. And also when you receive a message on IM received. The ActiveX, you saw with the ActiveX controls. In fact, with the Windows Live Safety Center that you saw, that is actually an ActiveX control. So it uses the same mechanisms for ActiveX. That is, the first time I had access to that application, it asked me, do I want to install this ActiveX control? And normal ActiveX, like we get in Internet Explorer, applies here. It puts the same dialog boxes. It's not confusing to the user. So the channel object, I won't go into too much detail because I'm going to go in the demo here and show you a lot more. But essentially, there are different properties that are off the channel object, the data that's being passed through, if there's any errors, the type, that is direct or indirect, whether I'm receiving read-only or read-write IM messages, and you can actually set those settings to determine how you want to interact with the activity application. We also provide with IE7 the use of XML HTTP. So it's given to you with IE 7.0, and that you use within your JavaScript the windows.external.xml HTTP. It is allowed, you can do it with IE 6, but you've just got to consider the ActiveX controls allowed to load, but then you've got to go and do a little bit more work. It's not standard that you get within IE 7. It allows you to pull dynamic content using from Ajax into your application without using iframe manipulation. Okay? And one thing to think about, when do I get it? And this is an important part depending on the version of Messenger that you're actually using. That if you're using Windows Live Messenger version 8, you actually automatically get it. The XML HTTP support's already there. If you're using MSN Messenger 7.5 or lower, then you need actually IE7 to be installed on your desktop machine as well that's interacting. So let's go in now and build an application. So I'll go to computer 2 here. So what I've done is I've got it's a web application. I'll actually get it on both screens if I could, Chrissy. On both screens for computer 2. So here I have a HTML page, and what I'm going to do is just walk through this code here and give you an idea of just what's happening. So it's actually a virtual Earth application, interactive application. And what it gives me the capability to do is I've loaded some controls, a cascading style sheet. I've loaded some JavaScript control, which Virtual Earth provides. And then in the script, I've declared some variables here. So here I'm just setting some enumerations based whether it's direct or indirect, or if somebody closes their application down. Setting some other API-specific variables, who the local user and remote user, and I've pre-populated some values. Here's where I'm getting into the specific Virtual Earth controls. So I'm setting a reference to the actual map object, how I want to pan the increment across, zoom levels, and the road style. So here's where the actual API functions take place. So here's the channel on remote app loaded. So here it's going and checking to see if that is the case. It then goes and sends an IM and checks to see if the instance is actually being sent across. So notice all I'm sending down the channel object and the send IM is just checking that, sending some data here to ensure that the remote application, in this case Virtual Earth, has been fired. I'm just checking down, and that's really what you're doing. You're just checking by signaling data back and forth between the two clients to say, what are the actions, what's happening here? You're not actually sending all of that content through. So it's very lightweight. And you notice here that it's all I have to worry about is what is my application doing. The plumbing has already been done for me. I don't have to get down into the protocol and start working out how do I send data across here. It's done for me. Here's what happens when the application is closed. Has the fault, again, I'm checking for the instance here to see if in fact their event has been fired on remote app closed on the remote application. On data received, so here I'm actually saying what is the data that's being passed from, that is, how far did I move? Did I do 3 or 4 increments when I was scrolling across the map, and how that was sent? What command was actually issued to do that? Then also I'm asking specific details about the Virtual Earth control. What was the latitude and longitude that I moved in the increment? And you'll see this very shortly. And then what I've done is I've broken down, so I've sent this sort of stream of data, and then I put commas in there to say the different types of data, and then all I'm doing is passing and looking at the particular pieces of information to actually process that. So there's, in fact, how I send the external channel data. So this is where I'm actually getting the data that was passed from another instance, that is passed from the remote client. And depending if I'm clicking on it, here I'm just passing through and breaking down the actual data in, because it's separated by, it's like with a comma, so I'm just delving into the data a lot more. Checking the map style, if there's any synchronization between the two clients, that if I move the map slightly, then obviously I want to send a synchronization event to the remote client so they're in sync with the map. Here's some debug. If I turn on some debug information, I can actually see what's being sent across. Here's what happens if there's an error. So I can actually send some error information saying that there was an error and pass that information back. So on type change, here I've got on if the data connection has changed. So if I want to cater for the connection type. So here is if I'm checking for the different types. Remember I was using enumeration here. All right, so I'm looking at the constant. So I'm checking what was the previous connection, what's the new connection now. I want to establish what are the different connection types here. On application close, again, sending the data, what I actually want to send across. So here's actually where I'm going through and sending the data, sending the data through. If there's any error, I've got standard error notification here. And then if I want to update the information, that is updating the information that's appearing on the local messenger activity window for the virtual earth. Changing the style if I change the style. And here's really where it does the work. It loads the on-page load function within JavaScript. It sets the parameters, sets the latitude and longitude, the zoom level, the map size. Here's the type of dashboard. All these particular events are found at the Virtual Earth website, so I'm not going to go too much into details with that. Here's where I initialize the map. I actually attach different events depending on what I click on the controls. I'm actually just listening for those events. All right, setting up the usernames and details. Here I'm setting who's inviting into the application. Some errors, and then this is just standard HTML, which is setting up. I've used a couple of div tags. One is to actually set the border style for the latitude and longitude, and also then what the map is going to appear in the map style. So let's have a look at this. Let's actually see what happens. So if I can get machine 1 and machine 2 on each respective screen. So if I go into this particular machine, and if I go, now it's been provisioned for local testing. That is, I have a file, and I'll talk about this, called the messenger p2p.xml file. It's stored in the program files, MSN Messenger. It's a testing file. It's a testing XML file. It needs to be on both machines. And you can see here that I have under the actions menu, when I'm having a conversation with somebody, is that I can actually start the Virtual Earth IM API application. So that option appears because I had that file contained within my MSN Messenger directory under program files. So if I click that option here and open it up, and notice that the acceptance is occurring on the other side, I accept that. Okay, so you'll see the Virtual Earth application running here. And obviously, I've centered around Redmond with the latitude and longitude. Makes it a bit easier for me. And I can actually start moving this application. So I'll go to this machine and I'll start moving. And you'll see that it's actually moving. So I could have a discussion here about, okay, where are we going for a business trip? What other points, what other customers do we want to visit along that trip? Something like a sales type application. And then you can use other functionality of Virtual Earth, such as push pins, and you can start putting your push pins here and saying, here's our itinerary, let's actually record this. And so you can have multiple people here interacting in this environment. I can actually zoom in if I want to as well. Okay, so you can see that it's zooming in on the capabilities. So you can see it's very interactive. It's a fairly simple application to develop. The main point is just getting used to those the different events that occur in the activity application and making sure that you have those in place. So I'll continue on. Let's talk about the provisioning step. It's a two-step process. Firstly, you have to test your application. You saw that I was testing here and getting the right events. And then you need to make your application available to Windows Live Messenger users. You saw in the activity menu that dropped down, I saw all the different activity applications. My Virtual Earth application could be sitting there if I provisioned it. So why is provisioning required for Windows Live Messenger activities? Well, it allows us to verify that you're using the Activity API properly. We want to make sure that the experience for our end users, 200 plus million users, the experience is welcome. We don't want to have it where you suddenly get these errors appearing, dialog boxes, and the user saying, what's going on here? So we help you with that process to verify the application, make sure that you're using it. Also, too, is we want to verify the terms of use here in compliance, that there's no adult content, no hateful content, etc. The other one there is also give really the messengers, and this is the ultimate goal for both us and you guys, is actually to give messenger users a great experience. So the provisioning steps, the MSGR P2P file, XML file, enables you to test an unprovisioned activity application. It's the same XML that's used by Windows Live servers. In fact, when we ask you to provision, you actually send that file to us. It's the same file. So it's actually a really simple process here. We don't want to have you to create a new file or us to create a new file. We just say, what's your file? It adds items to adds an item to the actions menu. That is the start, the name defined by the name element. I'll show you in the file. Important part to remember, I was running that activity application on both machines. Both machines need the MSGR P2P XML file. So let's have a look at that file. I'll bring up Visual Studio here. and the Solution Explorer. I've actually just put it in here. And this is something you may want to do. I always keep the P2P file locally with the actual virtual directory where I'm storing the application, so that if I need to do testing, I can just pull it down quickly on both machines, and it just makes a central point to store it. I mean, it's entirely up to you where you want to keep it. So if I open up this file, so here's in fact the XML file here. So the entry here, 7, is important. That's actually showing that and denoting that it's a test application. Different locales, so depending on the locale settings that you've set for your Internet Explorer and for Messenger, and what version of, what market Messenger is actually in, you can actually have different settings, and it can detect. So you can test whether English and then test Spanish of the Virtual Earth application. 1 or 0, it's a flag to indicate whether it's a kid-safe application, that is, kids' passports can authenticate and use that. Also 2 is that the category and sequence number. Generally, I don't worry about too much about those ones. That's actually saying what market and things like that. We'll leave it as default there, but when we actually provision the application with you, we actually do these settings to say which market do you want this application and what category, etc. The name, self-explanatory, description. Here's the important part, the URL, where in fact that application is residing on your public internet, extranet, okay, intranet environment. So how does it get to it? The type, that it's an application. Here's the actual height and width. And I've got some other details here, which is saying, do I enable IP information? Do I know where this application or the actual users are interacting? What is their IP address? Do I enable user properties to probe further? Do I support ActiveX controls? Do I send file information? All right, so I can send file. I can have an activity application, that uploads information, maybe customer information. So you could actually have your Salesforce talking to a bot and uploading customer information into that. So it could be a way, a conduit, a portal to bring information into and then put it into your own environment through a custom mechanism, such as maybe into a database or something like that. Also, the client version, 6.0, I mean, that's just saying what is the minimum application, MSN Messenger application that's going to support activity applications. So I'll leave it at that. Okay. So there's where I went through and talked about the settings there. They're important values to think about. For testing apps, keep your entry ID as 7, category 50, sequence 10, the name, URL, the type, all right, the application and directory, and think about the maximum height and width. So launching the activity application, you saw one way I could do that. I could actually go into the actions menu, start the application, all right, and select the name. That's great if I'm testing applications. If I want to launch from a web page, here's in fact how and this is after you provision it, so it only works after provisioning. You can see where we put an app ID, the unique identifier that identifies, it's like a GUID that uniquely identifies that application and launch it. That also then appears in the drop-down menu where you saw the activity applications. Right, so the 2 places, I could have it on a web page, and you could say, do you want to talk to my bot, or do you want to talk to my, and interact with my activity application, and I can click on this link, and straight away can launch that into that process for me. And so the app ID is provisioned during the provisioning process by us. Let's talk about debugging. So enabling debugging in IE Advanced tab. You can uncheck disable the script debugging. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but essentially you need to go in IE, uncheck these options. You then need to place an app and resource on the web server. You need to edit your Messenger P2P XML to reference the red server. And what's important is when you're bringing up Visual Studio, you attach to the Messenger process. Don't attach. A lot of people think, oh, well, I need to attach to IE because it's an IE application. It's actually it's a process in a process. So you attach the Messenger application, make sure that you set the debugging option in the script, and then you'll be able to debug your application. So if I go back up the top here, you'll see I think I commented it out. Right up the top. So notice the debugger that appears on the top here. Notice I commented it out. So if I want to debug, I need to uncheck those options in IE. Right? Then I need to go and make sure that I have the Messenger P2P and it's set up correctly on both machines. All right? And then I also need to make sure that I turn the debugging option on. I set a breakpoint, I attach to the process, and I start debugging. Okay. So I'm using Visual Studio 2005.net here. Again, this is just talking about where you want to walk through your variables and setting your breakpoints. Also, check what's happening in the P2P. You notice that I had some areas where I was actually debugging some information to check on the channel object to see what data is being passed between the two clients, if I'm correctly formulating the data messages back and forth. Also, the JavaScript debugger keyword, make sure you have that at the very start of your script debugging. So in the very start of your script tag, make sure you have the debugging. Otherwise, if you have it further down, it actually fails, and it doesn't give a very intuitive error message back. So just a big caution there. I've experienced it myself. Also, too, is use alerts often. So if you're trying to get alerts and to notify if there's anything happening in the channel, use a channel send IM to output debugging text to the conversation window so you can test it out and see if that's the correct functionality you're after. Also, too, it was interesting. A lot of people, when you add the MSGR P2P XML file into your C program files, MSN Messenger, you don't have to stop or log out of Messenger and kill the process and reload it again. All you have to do is just close the conversation window and reopen. It's dynamic on that sense. I've had a few emails and inquiries about people shutting down the entire Messenger process and then restarting it all again. It's like, no, you don't have to go through that process because the app is reloaded on every invocation of that particular activity. All right. So I'm not going to go too much in the provisioning. I was going to demo on that, but I'm just watching time here, and I want to talk about alerts. So I think debugging process, we all know we've debugged applications in our life here. I think the important part is make sure that debugging option is set. Make sure you uncheck the 2 checkboxes for Internet Explorer to allow debugging, because that'll catch you. All right, and you have to go into Internet Explorer to do that in the advanced options. It catches people all the time. Okay. So let's talk about alerts. So what are MSN alerts? They're a killer communications platform. So they're a platform service. Right? Think of this as another medium. They provide real-time, and this is a really important one, real-time delivery. So as a user subscribes to an alert, from that point there, depending on the type of information they want to receive, and you can see here, it's all RSS-triggered information, any kind. And we have different categories here, news, sports, blogs. We have job hunting here from Monster. We have travel information. We also have product-related information. I think what's interesting in here is think about how you want to project that information. How do you want to entice your users? You want to grab your users' attention and focus when this toast appears. And you could have, for example, in news, you may want to have a quick caption, like the other forms of media where you read the headlines of a newspaper and you go, great, I want to find out more about that. Because the minute they click on it, any of these particular toasts here are clickable. It's going to take them and redirect the users to a site, to an MSN activity application, to a bot. All right? Straight away, it's enticing them to go to that. So it's driving those users to your content, to your websites, to your properties within your organization. You may want to be very short and descriptive there. For example, the sports one, for those avid sports fans, you may just want to get the sporting scores. That's all I want. I want to watch that during the day. But what's interesting about this is you want to think about how you position that. If Giants was 0 and Angels was 0, and then suddenly it became Giants 0 and Angels 5 or 15, you may want to click on it and say, what happened there? All right, straight away it's going to drive to that particular website, in this case Fox Sports. Blogging, so anytime you go to Spaces and you blog information within your space and you want other users to notify that, they'll get a toast. All right, so it's very much here RSS-triggered information. So how do users sign up? In particular your case here, you can provide this capability on a web page. And from there you can actually subscribe to the MSN alert, what type of categories, we'll talk about this. You as a web designer can use the manager tool, the alerts manager, to allow what type of content, how you want to categorize it, how you in fact want to provide the capabilities to your end users. And really it's up to the end user, so you want to make it enticing as possible to say, I want to select all categories instead of just one category, because you want to drive more content to the user. So think about how you're going to project that information to the user. You can see here, this is actually a live website. Virgin Radio actually put, and I think they've now changed the MSN Alerts tab to actually looking like a toast, like an actual proper alert. And they're finding now that it's driving a lot of content to their site. So this is important, and this is an important part to stress across when you're thinking about alerts within your organization. You want to project that out. It's 100% user opt-in. It's up to the end user to subscribe to this service. However, you can make it enticing. You can say, what categories do I want to provide here based on RSS feeds? So, for example, we look at Virgin Radio. We can look at competitions, guest alerts, podcasts, radio news, radio station news, or tickets alerts. So you can actually, when you're using the Alerts Manager, you can set your categories based on the different RSS feeds that you want to project out. And the user says, I want all of these, I want some of these. And the next step is, in fact, how do I want to receive those alerts? So here are the different alert types. I can have a delivery mechanism to the desktop, to email, to SMS. So you can have different, they can select. Now you can't adjust that particular piece. All right, that's an important part because that's the service that we're providing. It's up to the end user whether they want to receive it via email, via messenger, or via SMS alerts. All right, that's a piece you really don't touch because it's actually up to the user. Also, too, is that you can do custom delivery. Could you imagine if I wanted to subscribe an alert to, say, stock, such as NASDAQ or something like that, and I'm constantly getting alerts? It could be a little bit discouraging. So you can actually say how, in custom delivery, I can say how often I want to get it. Do I want to combine? Do I want to aggregate the number of messages into one common alert? So and that's entirely up to you how you want to develop that custom delivery. So here, using presence on the alerts platform automatically finds users with RSS information. So here we've got a toast appearing, and it's showing welcome to MSN Alerts from Virgin Radio. Click here to manage your alerts. So it's really putting the power into the end user to customize it. This may be a way if you put new categories in to notify that end user that there's new categories, new RSS feeds, new information, new content. What's important about this is it drives traffic to your platform. So you've got to think about this, not only just describing alerts to Hotmail or Windows Live Mail, to SMS messages, but also Messenger, 200 plus million users. They're going to subscribe to that. They're going to be sitting there talking to the messenger, and suddenly appears as a toast. They go, oh, wow, this is information I want to see. Click on it, bang, they're straight to the website. So you're driving that, a captured market, if you like, of 200 plus users, 200 million plus users to your website. So here's some stunning click-through performance to almost what I was talking about with 200 million messenger users. Look at this, some of the sites that we've worked with. L'Oreal here, 24 and 35% increase on the click-through, all right, on beauty alerts. MSN Autos, based on the Detroit Auto Show, we promoted that. 18% click-through performance. All right, so remember I said it's 10 times, the 10 times fold here of click-through that we're driving users here. All right, we're not seeing those double digits on just regular website content. We're seeing single digits, low single digits. So this is a way of driving, in fact, a lot more click-through. I Love You Messenger, when we had contests at 23%. The Messenger Beta, getting information about upgrade information, 37%. This is a very powerful mechanism here. So here's the MSN Alerts Manager. So if you're creating alerts based on your RSS feeds, from here you actually say, I want to have a customized icon that appears in the actual toast that appears to the end user. So you could put your brand, so think about the brand awareness. If users, your customers know about your brand, make that appear first so it's eye-catching to the user. Also, too, then you can go in and create the particular alerts, the categories, and how we create that is where's the RSS feed, what is the category that we're going to utilize here. And then also, too, is we have reporting capabilities to go in and you can say, well, I want to report back on the alerts. How successful? What are the click-through rates? I want to confirm that for my business. So we have a very full and rich content reporting environment. So here are some of the other MSN Alerts partners that we include here. So Live Expo, which is our like a classifieds website that we have, and it's really revolving around the social networking aspect of actually classifieds. We have MSNBC, Fox Sports, MSN Spaces in Australia, FeedBurner, MSN Travel, Money Central. So I encourage you to think about this as a new way of delivering content of your websites through our Messenger platform, Windows Live Messenger platform. So one important part is, the best part is zero deployment time. That is, it's free to developers and users. That is, we have ad support there. All right, and here's a place where you can go to sign up at .alerts.msn.com, or you can actually contact our biz desk at Microsoft.com to find out more information. It doesn't, or if you provide RSS feeds today, you can utilize this feature. There's no extra work on your part. You can say, here's the categories I want, here are the RSS feeds. We provide the infrastructure to go, I want to have a toast appear for MSN Messenger, Windows Live Messenger, to Windows Live Mail, to SMS messages. We provide that delivery mechanism for you. You don't have to worry about that plumbing. That's the unique part about this. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to these two gentlemen here, John Kim and Pierre Berkoff, to actually talk about building and deploying Windows Live robots. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Campbell. Welcome, everyone. Campbell has shown us quite a bit about activities, alerts. Now we're going to focus a bit more on how we can actually build and deploy bots on Windows Live Messenger. So to start with, I want to clarify, maybe say something pretty obvious, but IM bots are not just another way to access a website. The users, when they talk through a conversation window, expect and actually have actual conversation with the bot. Also, their expectation in terms of how responsive a bot is versus a website are fairly different. So in essence, they expect the bot to be very quick, to give them answers that are very to the point, that is no fluff, that is basically exactly what they want. Another interesting point, and we'll look at a couple of cases of bots in terms of traffic, is that you're going to see traffic patterns that are very different between bots and websites. So the type of growth you see, the type of traffic patterns at peak time and so on, are not the same as you would see on the website. All these factors, because of all these factors, basically using off-the-shelf web serving technology is not very practical there. To a certain extent, it's not completely true, but web serving is very bandwidth constrained. IM bots obviously have very little constraint in terms of bandwidth because they transfer very little information. On the other hand, the constraint in terms of how much CPU you need for the natural language part, what are the limitations because you have to keep all these persistent connections permanently open to all the users, make it needing very different architectures to deploy at scale. So quick case study. We have a bot that we're using internally. We use for testing that's called Smarter Child that we launched or relaunched, I guess, on MSN 4 months ago. So Smarter Child, very quickly for the people that have not used it, have not seen it, is basically a fairly general purpose bot that does information access like news, movie times, yellow pages, things like that, but also is a chatbot, provide games, that kind of things. So 4 months ago, we relaunched Smarter Child on MSN. 4 months later, we have 300 million plus queries per month coming in. We already have 3 million unique users in the user profile database. We're peaking traffic at around 300 queries per second during the weekends. What's important to understand here is that we never promoted that bot. We never advertised it. We never took a banner. We did nothing. We just put it up, and that was it. So that's the pure example. It's pure viral growth, not even help. We didn't do anything to it. If you want to try to go to smarterchild@hotmail.com and chat with it. We've done a bunch of other bots that have significant traffic as well. We've done a bot for Microsoft, for Encarta, that is encarta.metro.net, that accesses Encarta instant answers. We've done marketing bots for a bunch of companies. So you can try a bunch of these, and you'll see how it works. Now, so what do you need to build these bots? First and foremost, what you need is a natural language engine. Because by essence, even though there's a lot of things that are being added to Messenger in terms of activities and being able to put icons and backgrounds, the central part of the IM window remains the conversation part of it. And to be able to have a good interaction with the user, you need a natural language engine there. You also need to be able to have a conversation with the user. So you need a natural language engine, but you need also something that handles a conversation flow and how it works and how you're going to dialogue with the user. Once you have these two pieces, you also need a user profile system that ties with these first two pieces so that you can actually store information from queries to queries, but also store information in a flexible way for each agent you're building, each bot you're building, from sessions to sessions, so that you can reuse the knowledge you built from one session into the next session. And of course, you need to have a connection to the network that allows you to exploit and use as many of the features of the client on the other side, the end user software client, as possible. Obviously, you need all these components to be highly scalable and cost effective in the context of the type of traffic we've talked about on the previous slides. So very quickly, I'm going to look at what are the key pieces you need for natural language. So it needs to be highly scalable in terms of the traffic, but it needs also to be highly scalable in the size of the knowledge or the content you can handle in any given bot. It also needs to be built in a way where it's very efficient to go and edit that content, change it day to day. By essence, because you're on IM and because you're emulating a conversation with the user, you need to be able to have a bot that from one day to another changes, evolves, and is getting improved and knows more things. And so that means that you can't afford to have a system that would need linguists or trained linguists to build the bot. You need a system where someone that is not very technical can come and gradually add to the knowledge of the bot. Then you need a whole set of features to be able to actually have a dialogue. So that means being able to be aware of context, looking at what were the previous queries to try to understand what people say, do things like anaphora, being able to resolve ambiguities, being able to prompt the user to clarify what was the user intent when you have basically something that's a bit ambiguous. You need to have spell correction, and not spell correction, as just a pre-process where you spell correct, then you go in a natural language engine. It has to be basically tied together to have good natural language recognition there. Last but not least, you need language libraries, both at the language level, whether it's English, German, Dutch, French, Japanese, but also industry-specific extensions so that if you're building a bot that is dealing with some specific industry, you have basically the lexicon, the parsing rules, and so on that are specific to that industry. Once you have this core, natural language and conversation, you also need the rest of your system around it to be really conversation-centric. That means that you need to be able to, as we discussed before, have a user profile management system that is really tied to the natural language engine. You need your logging to take into account that what you're going to be logging are complete conversation. You need your usage reporting to report on that kind of aspect as well. And of course, you need a completely different set of quality analysis tools to analyze the quality of interactions you have and be able to improve your bot day after day, week after week. So obviously, if you want to provide as rich of experience in the client as possible, it's very nice, in addition to this pure conversational part of the bot, to be able to enrich that by having rich media for activities, being able to change icons, put backgrounds, drive some of these changes according to the conversation, do these kind of things. So what we're going to do now with John here, we're going to build an agent and so see through a few steps in 10, 15 minutes here how we can build a bot. We're going to add some basic natural language. We're going to see how we can bind data feeds to this bot, see how we can bind to the user input, how we can add a bit of conversational structure to the bot, and finally, we're going to look at how we can open and create an activity from the bot. So first step we're going to look at today is we're going to try to add just basic, simple natural language there. So the way the system works, because we wanted people to be able to be non-technical and contribute to the knowledge that the bot has, is we're asking users to basically, developers, if you will, sorry, to basically give us sample questions of what they would like their bot to understand and what they would like the bot to answer. And so by giving us these samples, they basically tell us that if the user says anything that has a similar meaning to the sample they gave us, we should answer with these answers. Doesn't mean it's only going to understand these, but just everything that will have a close, a meaning that is close to these examples will be understood. So for now, we're going to switch to another machine, and John is going to demo it by talking to the agent.
All right. So we'll open a window to the MSN Music Bot, and we'll fire off some of the questions that we saw in the script there. And if you remember in the example question, we had hello, we'll type hi, and we get our answer, hi, nice to see you. So just a small example that our system understands that hello and hi mean essentially the same thing, so we'll give the same answer. And we'll fire off, I need some help. Get our answer, I'm here to get you to discover MSN Music. And remember, the example questions were help and I think what do you do, something like that. So now, what if we ask a query which is different in phraseology or doesn't include terms which were in the example questions? Can you assist me? We get the right answer. I'm here to get you to discover MSN Music. So an example of how it's very easy to create a very smart agent by just using some good example questions because of the lexicon and the libraries that are already in place in the system.
So now we've seen how we can do very simple natural language clauses in the language. We're going to see very quickly how we can bind some data to the agent. Just to note is that the code you're seeing, you're going to see most of the code to build the whole agent here. It's not just snippets out of a larger file. It's more or less everything that's needed to build the agent. So here we're just going to bind. You've seen that the example we're using is simple, very simple bot, 100 lines of code or so that does basically accesses MSN Music and does a few things with the MSN Music data. So here we're going to access the MSN Music feed. And so you can see basically the URL there. We're accessing it. We do a simple XML parsing of this and extract basically out of each channel, each item. We're getting the title, the description, the link for this item. And so the example, the second block of code here is showing how we're going to basically attach that to a natural language query we put there. That basically is going to say, whenever a user tells us something similar or that has the same meaning as show me the top 10, we will answer with that answer. And then we'll access the feed and get you this answer. So we're going to quickly do that in the agent to show you how it works.
Okay. So we'll fire off our question. Show me top 10. And we'll see a list of the first 10 titles in that feed and an option to see more if we wanted.
So now, hold on. Let me go here. Okay, so now we're going to look a bit at how we can do user input binding. So what we'd like to do is basically whenever a user types a query, we'd like to be able to extract some of what they said easily and be able to use that whether in the output or to access some data. So here, we're just going to try to do something where people can ask for downloads for a given artist, and basically we'll show that we understood that, and if we wanted to put a bit more code, we would put code that accurately accesses the feed to get this information. So you may see here that what I've done is I created a structure that's called a subpattern, basically to define what we will understand as an artist name. Obviously here, I just did very quickly with two static names there. You could point that to to a database, to a text file, to a list that is dynamically accessible web service. And so after that, I just write a simple reference question or sample question that says download for, and I basically extract the name of the artist from the answers, from the request from the end user. And so after that, we'll just show it by an example by just reusing the name of the artist in the output. So once again, we're going to try to demo that in the agent. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll ask about the artists that we saw there in the subpattern. Show me downloads for Eminem. And we see our answer, which has been dynamically adjusted for the value that we asked about, Eminem. And if we ask now about Shakira's downloads, we're going to see the same thing, just on the fly, just understanding what we've asked and using that value in the output. So what happens if we ask about something that hasn't been included in the subpattern? Sting downloads. The agent isn't going to understand us. So an example of what the subpattern can do is associate terms, whether it be products, services, or artists, to specific reference questions.
So we're going to go quickly to that, which we demoed. So now we're going to look very quickly. So we added some natural language patterns. We basically did some data binding. We bound variables to the user input. Now we're going to look at how we can add very simple conversational structure to the agent. So we're just going to do something where when people ask, something similar to what's number one or what's the number one song, we're just going to show this number one song, and we're going to ask them whether they want us to play it or not. And so for now, so basically after that, we basically specify that if they say something that can be understood as yes, we'll play the music. If they say something that can be understood as no, we just ask them if they want what else they want to do. So we're going to demo that as well.
All right, so we'll walk along this path and ask what is the number one song. And it calls that procedure, executes it, shows us the number one song, and then asks us if we want to hear it. And for now, we'll say no, and then we'll see the answer response to no. So we've been walked through, guided through this conversation by the agent.
So now, it's a good occasion. We basically said, okay, we have the question whether to play this song or not. So what we'll do now is quickly add an activity to that bot. So the way to do it, once again, most of the code that you need to do it is on this slide. We're just going to define in the first block the name of the activity, its application ID. We're going to basically put a bit of matching of reference questions there that allows us, first of all, to ask the bot to invite us, which we'll do just to show that you can do that. Very simple, one call to do there. And then the last block of code here is just a code that allows us to basically send data to the activity and make the activity do something for the bot. So we're going to basically show that in action again.
All right, so we'll ask the agent to invite us now. Offers the invitation, we accept. And now we'll ask that same query. What's the number one song? See the title, and we're asked again if we want it played for us, and we'll say yes this time. So we're shown a link to the activity and the page. We're driven to the page for this song and able to click onto it to play.
So we don't have the sound plugged on this machine, but so let me go quickly through that, the backup slides. Okay, so basically we've built a bot from all the code you've seen allows you to do a bot that has basic natural language, data binding, user input binding, an activity window, some dialog structure, and that's less than 100 lines. A lot of what we've done in text format in our scripting language and also be done, in fact, with our own web management console. So John is going to describe a bit on screen what we have here. So what's important is that with this console, you're basically accessing your server, and you can edit the content of an agent and go through an approval publishing process that allows you to change an agent live without it even getting disconnected from the messenger network. And so you can change the content, change the answer, change the dialog structure on the fly on the live systems.
So it's a very straightforward format layout that is great for non-technical people. You can see that there's a list of topics in the left nav. And then in the right area, you see an area where you can drop in a title and add questions, reference questions, which are bound to the answer below. And here we have an action associated with this reference question. And as you add your questions, you're going to get feedback about whether or not this question is going to match in other places, what kind of subpatterns we already understand for the different words within your question, and some of the rephrasings are going to work on that question as you type it in, so you'll see whether or not you need to add it.
So in terms of deployment, basically the model we have is you can develop for free, and you only pay when you finally deploy your agent. So you can develop and test with our developer edition as long as you want. When you want to deploy at scale, you either can buy a server license and run the server yourself, or you can basically use our hosting services. Today, a lot of our bots are hosted by us. There are some bots that are hosted by the customer themselves. It's kind of a split between the two. Both solutions basically work really well. In terms of the SDK and the developer edition, it's free available on our website. Currently, you can get you can run up to 50,000 sessions a month with this edition for up to 6 months. Only on Messenger. It's only much less than that. I don't remember the figure. I think it's 500 sessions a month on other networks. If you want to contact us, you can do that by also emailing us at MIX06@conversation.com. You may have seen we built a very simple bot. The same technologies, the same servers have been used to build a fairly large customer support system for companies like Comcast, Vonage, Cox, Time Warner Cable. They are using the same inherent server natural language capability to build large-scale, frontline customer support systems. So it scales well, both in terms of traffic and the size of the database you can access, and the type of service level that you can expect in these environments. So we're done with the part on bots. I think we're going to do a Q&A. I think there's another slide.
Yeah, I think there's a couple more slides. Just some developer resources here on Windows Live Messenger Dev Center on MSDN. You can actually see the URL there. There's the Activity API download, which is a great SDK to download. It provides a sample called Tic-Tac-Toe, which shows you interaction playing Tic-Tac-Toe between two, so you get the general concept of how to build an activity application. We have a discussion forum that's very active, discussing about various aspects of the Messenger platform. We also have, in fact, the Windows Live Messenger team space and the personal space there. There's the alerts sign up. Also, if you have any business-related questions, you can see the last point there, bizdesk@microsoft.com. I encourage you to have a look at these developer resources. We're going to start producing SDKs to actually and appear in the Dev Center, so you'll be seeing new and more functionality around the Windows Live Messenger platform. Don't forget the session evaluations. We value feedback, so please submit the online evaluation. Certainly make it worth your while. If you actually do evaluation, you'll go into the drawer. I think there's 10 session time slots that pick based on your eval, and you could win a Creative Zen micro photo. So I encourage you very much to do the session evaluations. Okay, we'll throw it to questions. We've got a few more minutes here for questions. So please use the microphones that you can see here. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any. It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
For either the MSN alerts or the Conference Agent platforms, is it possible to have user-specific secure data? So perhaps a secure RSS feed built into alerts so that I could do a financial transaction that is custom to that specific person. Likewise, the Conference Agent platform. Or is it more for just generic, publicly available information? Can it be done securely?
Because it's an RSS feed, I mean, it's using HTTP. You could have a HTTPS. I'd have to check with the alerts team. I know Royal is somewhere here if he's already gone. He's one of the programs. Can we have the secure?
So it's not that the RSS can be secure, but remember, whenever you're using alerts or IM, that's pretty
Yeah.
So anybody can be sitting down at the machine. So what we like to say is anything in an RSS feed is as far as
So I'll reiterate that back because it's being recorded. So yes, we can have secure RSS feeds. However, the content is being delivered through a public network, so that information itself is open. So yes, you can have the secure content, but then because you're delivering it through the alerts, the toast notification, that's obviously a public network that's being delivered that. If you had perhaps Windows Live Mail, it's a mail or SMS message, then obviously it's using the whatever security mechanisms they have. Does that answer your question there? Okay.
About alerts, how much does it scale up, and does it rely on SQL notification services?
How? Sorry. How much does it scale?
Scale up, yes.
Scalability. I mean, we're usually some of the major partners that we're working with, such as Fox Sports, and I mean, obviously, we're getting in close to millions and millions of alerts daily that are being sent out. I mean, the numbers off the top of my head. I'd have to dig that information up, but I know that it's scaling millions and millions. You think about we have a 200 million plus user base, and potentially out of that user base alone, we can send alerts to. I mean, it's using the presence-enabled network, so we're scaling these, if you like, the alerts platform and the messenger platform are side by side, so we're scaling at both magnitudes.
So does the engine from MSN Alerts send messages asynchronously in order to get best scalability, or is it synchronous? Or what kind of protocols are the output from MSN Alerts to the network?
Well, we're relying on your RSS feed. So how quickly you're updating your RSS content is how quickly we can notify the information back out to the alert subscribers. So we're really dependent on that RSS feed. So if you have dynamic RSS feeds, essentially, then obviously we can push that out. But remember that the end user is going to start receiving, depending on how they subscribe to that alert, how many notifications are going to appear to that user. It could be overwhelming, and then you've got to think about how do I aggregate that information together so it's meaningful when I click on that particular alert, then I can then be driven to the website that shows me more information. So it's sort of a balancing act. I see where you're going here. You want to sort of maximize that avenue and get as much content, but also at the end game is you want to drive that user to your website or maybe to a bot or maybe to an activity application. It's a launch pad to drive more traffic to your website. That's ultimately what you're after.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
Quick one. Can the with the bots, can they use the presence information to determine? So, the examples we've given, it's been like the end user contacting the bot. Can it work the other way around? I'm thinking about smaller scale applications. We know up to 200 million, but where you've got, like I say, a small community or something. I'm thinking like more in a job sort of network where you've got, say, someone contacting people to say, are you available for work? So driving it the other way, checking the presence information, say who's online, starting to send out messages and walk a list, that sort of approach.
Technically, it's not a problem at all. I mean, there are issues about what you can do or can't do because obviously Microsoft is very careful about limiting what people can do in these areas. So basically to prevent spam with a bot platform. But technically you can do it. You can, on very large scale bots like Smart Shell or Encarta that have millions of users, we don't maintain a list of the user that we have on, we don't actually maintain the forward list at the network level. But we have, in our platform, you can basically declare a number of people you want to monitor the presence on. So as long as you do that on a few tens of thousands of people, it's doable. If you do it on more than that, then it's not necessarily practical. But in your case, it would probably work well with the reservation that whether Microsoft will allow you to do that on the network.
The only caveat I would say for that is make sure that your users are aware of that feature. It can be very daunting and we did some prototype work internally where suddenly this conversation window flies open and the bot's trying to talk to you and you go, well, I didn't initiate that conversation with that. And we've found with test audiences, that can actually be quite alarming. So I would, by default, we don't enable that in the platform. Certainly you heard from a conversation point of view, you could hold your own list, but you just need to be very careful. It's a fine line. I would consider your audience there, how you want to deliver that and how you message that across.
Yeah,
but
it's just an idea from listening, not from rushing off to build it tomorrow.
Yeah, you could actually get some nasty emails saying, hey, this bot's trying to talk to me all the time and I don't want to talk to it. So how do you turn it off? And there's all, and we rely very much on putting the control of the end user where they can opt in or opt out. So you need that type of, you saw activity applications that there are invitations. So you need to think about how you're going to have that invitation model and where they accept or decline.
Yeah, I envisage it for small control groups where it's very much someone's opted in to be on a job list or,
Yeah, I mean, we are considering it, but we're just conscious of the users. There's 200 million users and suddenly they start getting spammed out. People could take it to the extreme. Thank you. So we can, one more question, then we'll have to wrap it up. We're a little bit over time here.
I've just got a quick question on the language capabilities.
Okay.
I live in a country where people routinely speak 4 languages. How can the conversation bots handle this if people come in, you're not even sure what language that might be their preference when they start?
Well, it's a problem we're tackling right now because we're currently localizing the Encarta bot we did for Microsoft. So we are exploring different options. You can try, you can auto-detect when people talk and get stuff. And the current Encarta bot actually does some of this, as a test bed. So you can do that. There are issues a bit with branding. Don't forget, you only have one pretty name for your agent in the body list. So you go in your list, the bot is going to be called, well, in the case of Encarta, it's Encarta Instant Answers. In France, it's going to be Réponse Encarta. So there's an issue there that even though you have the bot behind the server that can, auto-detect the language, the question, what do you declare in the body list? And so, yes, the engine can basically auto-detect and get, different language to coexist within an existing bot. But there are other issues around the delivery of that agent to the body list.
From an activity application, you saw that there was a locale setting, the ES-US. So you could actually have, when you provision the application, if you want to use one of the activity applications, one of your mechanisms to deliver content, you could have different locale settings and appropriate. Also, too, is that when Messenger connects, when 2 Messenger clients connect to each other, they negotiate settings, like the user tiles and personal status messages, and also what locale they're actually using. So what is that, a French installed version of Messenger versus an English version of Messenger? Where from? Is it a Canadian English, a US English? So you can actually detect the settings and say, okay, I want to have appropriate content for that. So that's one way of doing that.
Yeah, that does answer most of it, but in a lot of situations, locale is not enough. There's no locale setting for Malaysia English.
Yeah. It's a fine line. I mean, you saw how many markets that we're trying to, and we're expanding all the time for the Messenger. So not only is it, a background service protecting it well, it's also, we've got to think about the client supporting those languages as well. Certainly, if you send your email to bizdesk@microsoft.com, we actually show what are the comparable localization settings that meet to your particular market. We can help you in that way. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.